So I've been using the OnePlus 8 for about a month. Actually, it's been a little bit over a month by now, and I thought I'd just update you guys on how well the phone has been holding up over that time period. I tend to do this kind of review for all the phones I test because I think that 30 days is that minimum period of time that you really need to get to know the phone and all the quirks it has, and of course all the good stuff too. I'm going to gloss over the design and specs of this phone because by now you've probably heard it all a million times, and if you haven't, you should go watch my initial review of this phone before you watch this one, and the link will be up here somewhere. But just in case you need a refresher, here's a 30-second rapid-fire spec readout. The OnePlus 8 has a 6.55-inch AMOLED display that caps out at Full HD but runs at a high refresh rate of 90 Hz. It's equipped with the latest Snapdragon 865 CPU, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM depending on the model you buy, a 4300 mAh battery, and it comes with a base amount of 128 GB of UFS 3.0 storage. It's got a triple camera setup on the back with a wide, ultra-wide, and macro instead of a telephoto, and a 1080p hole-punch selfie camera on the front. Whew! Now that you're refreshed on the spec sheet, let's talk about how this phone feels in everyday use. It's fast. Very fast, as is expected of a phone running the latest Snapdragon CPU. Opening apps and switching between them is a breeze, and I've had very few bugs and glitches on this phone in the day-to-day operation of it. Gaming is also no problem, and games like Fortnite can run at the full 90 FPS to match the display's high refresh rate. The 90 Hz display isn't just great for gaming either, it makes the entire phone feel a lot faster than a phone running a 60 Hz display. Technically, the iPhone 11's A13 Bionic is a beefier, better CPU than the Snapdragon 865, but despite that fact, the OnePlus 8 just feels faster overall. Animations are much more responsive and fluid, and honestly, I'm gonna have a really hard time going back to a phone that doesn't have a high refresh rate display now. The display on the OnePlus 8 is also AMOLED for those deep inky blacks and is HDR10 Plus certified, so it's a fantastic phone for watching movies or TV shows. This is a full HD Plus panel, so it's not going to be quite as sharp as the OnePlus 8 Pro's 1440p display, but at 402 pixels per inch, it's going to be totally fine. I'm not complaining at all. Like I mentioned in my previous review, the speakers are also fantastic, and while I don't normally condone using your phone's speakers to watch a movie, I'll let it slide in this case. They've got the same Dolby Atmos spatial audio voodoo going on as the iPhone 11, and the surround sound effect it generates is actually awesome. Now, I did have some issues surrounding the curved edges of the display. I'm with Marquez on the fact that I really want flat displays to come back. These curved displays look pretty, but they result in a lot of accidental touches, and the OnePlus 8's display is just no different. In terms of durability, this phone has held up perfectly. I've been using this phone without a case for the entire time I've had it, and there are absolutely no scratches or dings on either the display or the back of the phone, even though I've dropped it a couple of times. I was initially worried about how easy it would be to scratch the matte coating on the back of this phone, but it seems to be pretty scratch resistant. It still looks great. Granted, I do take care of my phones most of the time, so if you're accident prone, I still recommend getting a case, and I'll leave some good ones for you to check out in the description down below. Now, this phone isn't all sunshine and rainbows. I do have some very small gripes, most of which have to do with the cameras. I did a whole video on this topic, so if you want more in-depth information, I'll leave a link for you up here. But basically, the gist of it is that the cameras are decent most of the time, but aren't up to flagship quality. Photos, for the most part, are good, but there are some color discrepancies between the ultra-wide and wide-angle cameras, and the ultra-wide camera tends to be kinda soft. Portrait mode photos from both the front-facing camera and rear-facing wide-angle camera are great overall, though. The one real letdown for me was the video on this phone. The front-facing camera can only shoot 1080p 30 FPS video, and although dynamic range is decent, sharpness just isn't there. Even the wide and ultra-wide cameras on the rear that can shoot 4K have some strange artifacting present in the footage, and the colors just aren't the best overall. If you do end up shooting a lot of photos and video on this phone, you're going to be able to do so for a long period of time though, because battery life on the OnePlus 8 is excellent. I should really get an award for these segues. I am nailing them today. OnePlus has put a 4300 mAh battery in here, and because of the fact that this is a 1080p 90 Hz display, it isn't nearly as power hungry as the OnePlus 8 Pro's 1440p 120 Hz display. The other day I was getting kind of low on battery, and I jumped into the battery page just to see how it was doing. Turns out I hadn't charged the phone in over 40 hours, and the screen was on for over 6.5 of those hours. This is with the display running at 90 Hz, and if you want even more battery life, you can throttle it back to 60. After hitting 5% battery, I plugged in the phone for about 45-ish minutes, and the phone went from 5% to 97% with OnePlus's Warp Charge 30-watt charger that's included in the box. The charger is so fast that I don't even care that this phone doesn't have wireless charging anymore. I know some of you guys are disappointed with that, and initially I kind of was too, but I really don't care anymore. Wireless charging is a lot slower anyway. One thing I do care about is the fact that this phone has no water or dust resistance of any kind. Well, Okay, that's not really true. Apparently, if you get the phone from certain carriers, it is IP68 rated, but the unlocked phones, like this one, aren't at all. And I gotta be honest, this plays on my mind sometimes. I'm a lot more likely to be afraid to pull my phone out around a body of water. It would probably be fine if I dropped it in because it does look like it has some form of protection given that the SIM card tray slot has a rubber seal, but because it isn't certified, it just makes me nervous. So from everything you've heard from me so far, you're probably gonna assume that I'm gonna conclude this video by saying, I'm so glad I bought this phone. It's the best phone ever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not. Here's the kicker. I regret buying this phone, not because it's bad, but because it's great. And I realize that sounds ridiculous, but I regret it because I now wish I went for the OnePlus 8 Pro because the cameras on that phone are better, it's IP68 certified, and it has wireless charging, which is literally the only gripes I have with this phone. I love this phone, there's no denying it. It's super fast, Oxygen OS is amazing, and this is easily my favorite Android phone that I've tested so far this year, and it's just so good at making me wish I spent more money on the upgraded version. But I realize that not everybody wants to spend a boatload of money on a brand new phone, so here's what I'll say. For the $699 USD it costs in the US, or the $44,999 it costs in India, this is an excellent phone for the money, and you should absolutely consider buying it. It undercuts phones like the Samsung S20 by a wide margin, and it does so in a way that doesn't leave out too many features. The OnePlus 8 gets a solid 2 thumbs up from me. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to support my channel. And as always, have a great day.